Do you wonder sometime what is the recipe for delivering projects successfully? And I call it recipe because if you use a recipe, you can be almost sure that you will get something predictable at the end. And you might have actually seen your grandma or somebody who has been preparing dishes, baking cakes or things like that. They have a recipe, and every time when they prepare the cake or when they prepare the dish, it comes out perfect, right? So they use a recipe, may not be written down somewhere, maybe very informal, but they use a recipe. So for delivering projects also, there is a recipe. And all of you who are leading projects for several years may have created your own recipe, and you may not have documented it, you may not be able to talk about it, but you might have created that recipe, I'm sure. And I have also created my own recipe to deliver projects successfully, and I'm going to talk about what is that recipe. So my recipe consists of ingredients and the process, how those ingredients are used to create a successful project. So in my recipe, there are 8 key things that a project manager needs to do to deliver successful projects. 8 things. Just 8 things, no more, no less kind of a thing. So I'm going to talk about what are those 8 things. So number 1 is the project charter. Project charter is something that defines the project, brings everybody on the same page, and also authorizes project manager to start the project. And so it's very important. It's a document that if it is handed over to somebody, they understand what the project is. So that's the number one thing for delivering projects successfully, that every project need to have a project charter, a well-documented and approved project charter. Number 2 is having a stakeholder register. Now, what a stakeholder register consists of? It consists of list of all the stakeholders, who they are internal or they are external, or they are part of the team, or how much participation they have, what are their communication needs, and what are their expectations from the project. So if a project managers prepare a stakeholder register with all this information, then he or she is going to take care of the stakeholders of the project and is going to manage them well, is going to keep them engaged, because now he or she knows who they are and what they require, what are their expectations. So that's the second important thing about the rest of my recipe, to have a stakeholder register for every project. The third is creating a work breakdown structure for all the work that need to be carried out, starting from the deliverable and breaking the deliverable into sub-deliverables, into packages, into activities. That whole thing, WBS defines the scope, brings the clarity about the scope. This can also be used to identify and manage changes. So WBS is a great tool to document the scope and also manage the scope. So that's number 3. Number 4 is resource allocation. Who are the people or material or equipment that is going to be used to deliver the project? How many of you need, how much of you need, from which day to which day, and all those kind of things. So important to know your resources that are needed for working on the project activities or delivering those deliverables. Number 5 is the schedule. Of course, very important, the timeline. What is going to happen when? That's important for all stakeholders, customers, or even the management. So for everybody, it's very important to know when, what is going to happen when. So a kind of a timeline. You all know what I'm talking about. So schedule is another key ingredient another key thing for the recipe. The sixth thing in the my recipe is communication plan. Having a solid communication plan helps a lot. Make sure that the communication plan has needs addressed for all the stakeholders. Every stakeholder need to have a line in communication plan that talks about what they need, when they need, why they need, and how a project manager is going to fulfill those needs. A very important thing, having a communication plan. And the next one is risk register. The risk register keeps information about all the risks. What are those risks? What is the probability that the risk may or may not happen? What is the impact? If this risk happened, then what is the impact on time, like schedule, and what is the impact on the cost that it will create? And list down all the risks, whatever risks come into mind. And this list could be a big list for a 1 year project with maybe 5 to 10 people working on a project. This could be easily about 15 to 20, just to give an idea. And then relate how these risks will impact the overall cost and schedule. It will also be helpful to build contingency reserve based on the risk and their impact. So, and the last ingredient or last key thing in my recipe is performance reporting. Keep a note, I'm talking about performance reporting. I'm not talking of status reporting. Status reporting is something, a point in time, or normally you do like weekly status, which is for the last week. But I'm talking about performance from the very beginning until today, how the project has performed. So that is very important, or I feel that is more important than just a point in time kind of a thing. So I'm looking for the whole project until today or until the date of the performance reporting. I like weekly performance reporting. So every week reporting what has happened in that week and through that week. And that tells the whole story. But if you take the shot, point in time chart like for a week, that may not tell the whole story. So that's why performance reporting is better than status reporting. So if you have these 8 things that I'm talking from my own experience, that if you have these 8 things in your recipe and it is practiced continuously and consistently, then your project will be a successful project. Every project that I have delivered using this recipe has been successful. And also, I have used the same recipe for recovering the failing projects. So when I go and look at the project that is in trouble, I see one or more of these things missing. Most of the time, I have seen the things that are missing are communication plan and risk register. Very common across all the projects. Maybe I would have recorded more than a dozen projects. So on all of those projects, I can say with confidence that communication plan and risk register were 2 things that were missing consistently across all those. And there were some others which were missing. And also I have seen when I go and work with teams, do consulting work, I start with my recipe, I start with my framework. I also call it toolkit. I have given it a name called as Essential Gear for Project Managers. And you can find it on my website, refinem.com. This recipe, I start with this recipe. So, okay, here is my recipe to deliver projects successfully. Now let's see what is your environment, what is your situation, and we'll modify it. So if you are looking for a recipe, you can start with my recipe, make the changes that you want to make, and create your own recipe. That way it will be your own, and you can use it over and over again to deliver projects successfully every time. Thank you.